I don't need to sell the condo. I could keep the condo as an investment property. And I kind of had this, aha moment and turned to my real estate agent and said, what if I kept the condo as a rental property? And she looked at me and smiled and said, I was wondering whether you were going to get there.
Welcome to Real Stories in Real Estate with your host, Denise Laframboise. Real people sharing real stories about their adventures in real estate.
Welcome to the Real Stories in Real Estate podcast, where we talk to real people who share their wins and losses about what they've done from their personal experience with real estate. I'm your host, Denise Laframboise, and I really appreciate you tuning in. Today, we're talking to Deborah Schroeder about her experience keeping her first home and buying another one. So Deborah, do you want to share a little bit about what you did?
Sure. Denise, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. So my mother lived in Ottawa and I lived in a condo in Toronto, and she's getting older and needed to figure out what she wanted to do. And so whether we were keeping her home or she was moving to a condo, and we decided to blend households. She would move from Ottawa and I would move from Toronto when we'd find a place in the east side of Toronto where I could still get to go to work. And we found a home in Whitby. And we bought a house, moved in together. I've got sort of like the adult suite downstairs and she's got the granny suite upstairs. And it's worked out really well for us because we can work together and I can keep an eye on her. And during the process, I was with my real estate agent. We were on our way to Whitby to look at a house. And I was driving in the car thinking, I've got to sell the condo and so I can buy the house. And as I was driving along, it hit me. I don't need to sell the condo. I could keep the condo as an investment property. And I kind of had this, aha moment and turned to my real estate agent and said, what if I kept the condo as a rental property? And she looked at me and smiled and said, I was wondering whether you were going to get there. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. I now have a tenant. He is paying my mortgage on my condo in Toronto. We bought the house together, my mom and I. And so I'm running two properties and I love it. I have income coming in and I'm building equity in another property, and I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah. And I think this is going to be a more common theme going forward, this cohabitation thing, especially with COVID now. I think there's a lot of people out there saying, I don't want my parents to go to a nursing home. I want them to be home where we can look after them. We can have services come into the house. And the cost difference, nursing homes are not cheap. So I think that we're going to see more of this as we move forward. And I think that's why the price of bungalows are going up. People want a property with no stairs that you could stay in for a long period of time, right? Do you want to share with me, so the good things are, building equity, getting somebody else to pay your mortgage. These are all really good things. Do you want to share any stressful parts? Like, was there any parts where you're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? This is crazy.
The stressful part for me was actually buying the right house. I can honestly say I'm very glad we didn't get the first two houses that we made offers on. They were not the right house, and I'm glad we didn't get them. When we found this place, we were starting to panic. We wouldn't find anything, and it was the right house for us. Absolutely. And we got it. When it's the right house, it somehow works out. The other stressful part was the paperwork. There's so much paperwork. The bank kept asking for the same paperwork over and over, and it ended up being very much an 11th hour, finally everything going through, which was a little stressful. It all worked out though. Yeah.
And I remember you saying about running into the banks, running into the lawyers, which is really funny to think about now, because during COVID, you could buy a house from your couch, right? You can see it virtually. You can sign all the paper with the realtor, with us, with the bank, with the lawyer. Everything can be done virtually now, which should make it a little easier, a little less stressful to not be running all over to get this paper and hand it to this person, right?
like online signing was really just starting then.
Yeah.
I'd highly recommend you ask your real estate agent if they use that. And if they don't, find a way that maybe they start, because there was absolutely no way that I could have been at all of the places I needed to be to sign the paperwork when it had to be signed. So being able to sign it online and forward it off was invaluable.
Well, we still have some banks that need ink signing of certain papers, right? Like they'll do some of the paperwork on electronic signing, but certain pieces of paper still even now have to be ink signed. It's or they call it wet signature, right? It's we're getting there, but it's still not there.
Well, one of the banks that my mortgage is with is actually in Toronto, because it was the only bank I could get to. Yeah. I couldn't get to the one where I was and where I would be living. So I had to do it where my condo is, because even though I'm not there, because they needed that in-person signature, and that's where I was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really funny thing to just think about. Like all the houses we bought, we had to go into the bank, have a meeting with the branch manager, do all this stuff. And it's so archaic now. Because you've always been able to buy a house online with a realtor. Like realtors have had electronic signing forever, but the mortgage piece, like the bank piece, has been really slow. And it took a pandemic to even kind of get most of them to embrace it.
I literally ran into a bank and jumped the line and said, "You have to stamp this or I lose a house."
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
right?
I know that that's not the case anymore. So that's great.
Do you want to tell me if you could go back in time and do this again, what would you have done differently, or what has helped you now? Like, what do you know now that you might have changed?
Well, I think I would have. I'm actually surprised it took me as long as it did to come to the realization that I could keep it as a second property. I mentioned to you that I read Rich Dad Poor Dad years ago.
Great book.
Great book. And it taught me about all the different kinds of income. And I had no residual income at that point. Didn't even know how I'd find it. I saw a business that I loved and I started that. So I've got residual income there. But also, it took me a while for it to hit me that, oh my gosh, rent would be residual income. Where's that other source of income that I can bring in and do going to take me, having a second or third job and spending all that time getting a salary, getting, paid by the hour. So in retrospect, I'm surprised it took me as long as it did to realize that, I can invest. I'm at a point that I can have somebody else paying my mortgage and, get the equity out of the house, the condo. And that's a form of income for me and another way to invest that is going to increase in value and isn't going to stress me out a lot and just create that income for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize what they can qualify for too, right? We have programs where we can use 50%, sometimes 85% of rental income as additional income for you to qualify on the stress test, right? So you can sometimes qualify for more than what you think you can, because you can use that rental income to carry both homes, which just people don't really know, right? Or if you don't ask, you don't know. And it's a conversation that's worth having, because there's a lot of people out there that can buy a rental property. And the other thing I always tell people is, like, it doesn't have to be next door. You could buy a rental property 3-4 hours away if that's what you can afford, and you can find a property manager to look after it for you. That will still pay itself off and go up in equity, right? You will still end up with a free house at the end of that, right? And sometimes even we were talking about cash flow before we got on here, right? Even if the rental income didn't pay the whole mortgage, if somebody says to me, it's going to cost you a couple $100 a month and we're going to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars in 5 years, it's a pretty good deal, right?
It is. It absolutely made a difference for me. The other thing, and it just another thing just came into my head was I recently renegotiated my mortgage with you on the condo. And thank you for that. You were amazing. The thing that has freed me up so much that, again, I wouldn't have thought of was you said, Deb, take a little bit extra and put that aside for your emergency money. Have that little bit of play, that little bit of wiggle room. So you're not, I was always behind the 8 ball, right? I was always trying to, catch up on payments, or, something would need to be fixed in the house. And so I'd have to go into debt for a little bit and then work to pay it off. Having that little bit of extra cushion there has been incredibly invaluable. I was able to redo my bathroom recently at this home because I had that little cushion. I didn't need much of it, but it was there. I didn't have to go into debt to, credit card debt in order to pay it off. So that was a huge thing. So thank you so much. That has limited the number of gray hairs that are coming into my head.
Yeah, that's the wealthy barber thing, right? So like you always need to have an emergency fund, because when a windstorm blows off our shingles, like to go into debt to fix your roof when you have to, then climbing out of debt is difficult, right? Like we need to plan for a worst case, and then we don't have to stress when it comes, right?
It's the stress level that goes down.
Thank you and when you own 2 houses, you have twice the likelihood there's going to be an emergency, right? Twice the likelihood that the furnace isn't going to turn on the first time you turn it on or something. So I really appreciate you sharing with us today about purchasing a second property. I also think it's just so relevant because I do think there's going to be a lot of people that say, maybe we should buy like a duplex, a 2-unit dwelling, so that our parents can age in place. It's such a common theme right now. And our parents are living a long time. They are still healthy. They can stay at home a long time, but sometimes it's helpful to have somebody else there. And if it helps you both financially too, that's just a bonus. Before we leave, do you want to, can you share a little bit about you said you have another residual income on the side. What else do you do, Deborah?
So my business is called Quintessential Consultants. We are a concierge service that provides access to exclusive deals on services you use every day, such as internet, home phone, gas and electricity, security and automation, mobile phones, and also for business, credit card processing. We are also about to launch an ID theft protection product that is going to be first of its kind in Canada and state of the art, and something that everybody needs right now. So basically, we're like the Amazon of essential services. It's a one-stop shop where you can go online and shop for your products, which you do every day anyway. The difference is that I'm going to help you make sure that you get what you need, just what you need, not being oversold internet that is far beyond what you're actually using. And you're also generally going to get a much discounted rate and have much better customer service. So that is, I love helping people because, if you can free up $100 a month, hey, that goes towards your mortgage or goes towards you buying a property or something like that. The other side of it is I help people start their own business doing the same thing. So you can actually not only save money on your own services, help your friends save money on their services, but you can also make money and create an additional residual income. And with that coming in every month, how many properties do you want to buy?
Awesome. So to recap, today we spoke to Deborah Schroeder, and we talked about potentially buying a property with your parents to help them age in place, but also keeping your original property so that you end up with 2 and you have the residual income of a rental property. If there's anybody out there that wants to talk about math and see if this is something that they could do either to keep their own property or maybe just to do the math to buy another property, as a mortgage broker, we help a lot of people buy properties, often with no money out of pocket if they have equity in their home to use. So if you want to talk about that, or if you want to check out more episodes of this podcast, you can go to my website, www.deniselaframboise, so DENISELAFRAMBOISE.ca. And you can check out anywhere that you listen to your podcast. So this will be available. We're on Audible, Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else you find your podcasts. Deborah, if people want to chat more about this with you or your other business, how can they find you?
Easiest way is by phone, 416-525-3755, or if you want to email me, Deborah, DEBORAH _Schroeder, SCHROEDER @live.ca.
We have two of the most difficult names to type on the planet, don't we?
No.
We just have to be so difficult.
It's easier than quintessential, though. When I chose that name, I should have thought of something smaller.
I chose mortgage, and I'm pretty sure that is the worst spelled word in the English language. So I really thank you for joining me today. And for everybody else, check out more Real Stories in Real Estate. We're bringing real people sharing their wins and losses about what they've done in real estate. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.